So hello everyone who's here and if you're watching later. So I've called today's um, sort of a class or presentation Dragon Medicine. And I know some of you come on Clubhouse, Dreamark Clubhouse, and that's been a theme that I've been really interested in or feeling this dragon medicine. And um, and I've been following this most of this year, this alignment of two of the main bodies in astrology, which are Chiron and Hygeia. And I haven't had time because we've been doing the Venus star points and all of that to get to this, what's going on. And the more I've tuned into it, I'm glad I waited because I'm feeling more and more like that this is a kind of catalyst or a portal for this dragon medicine. And certainly a time of like potential healing on the planet that we can really tap into. Um, so today I'm going to look at what's going on with these bodies and talk about some of the things I know about dragons. I'm going to begin with an attunement though. So we get a kind of experiential of that and then do a presentation. And then there'll be a bit of time at the end to talk about uh, your experiences. I'm going to put in the link. Don't do it now while I'm doing the attunement, but if you want to look up where your um, Chiron and Hygeia are, you can get a free chart at Taraka.io, and that will tell you both where it is in the zodiac and also where it is in gene keys and human design. So it's really handy for these astrology classes to have that because then you can just go and pick out. It's a little bit overwhelming when you first look at it because there's like hundreds of them. It's like, where would you start? But you can just pick out the ones that the class is about and where they are for you. But let's begin with an attunement. So yeah, I invite you just to close your eyes if you'd like to. Let's take a nice deep breath together in through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose, nice long deep breath. And out through the mouth. One more. As we approach this dragon energy, invite in these dream arc values or ways of being, of trust, playfulness, generosity, and discovery. So we approach in a light-hearted way, really trusting that we can receive just what we need right now. Within our body, we have a number of layers of our nervous system. And mirrored in the earth is also a kind of a nervous system of ley lines. And we might call these dragon lines, serpent lines. In Britain, they're connected with white horses, and even sometimes they're called worms or worms, as they'd say in Scottish. So all these names that describe this telluric energy system of our planet, go part and parcel of Gaia. And we have evolved from Gaia with the same kind of energy system. Just want you to gently touch your arms. It's like giving yourself a little hug and just touching the hands as if you were your own loving mother and father. Just moving the hands every couple of seconds. This is a really primal soothing for the nervous system. It's getting into a really relaxed, receptive state. Don't worry too much today of how much you might take in and through your mind. Just receive whatever you understand intellectually is great. There's other levels at which the dragons can infuse our system with healing and strength, and especially playfulness. So really rooting down into wherever you live on this planet. And it doesn't matter if it's known for ley lines or not. Just root down, trusting that somewhere nearby this energy is surging and moving and seeking us. It's seeking to absorb and transform our consciousness to higher frequencies, to set the new codes for the future, the time of the sleeping phoenix that is coming. To open our imaginations, to help us stretch beyond what we know right now. Let's let your mind, your body stretch your aura out, connecting into the earth light grid. And gently dissolving the perceptions of your mind that make you feel separate, give you that impression that you somehow are separate from Earth and other humans, and to really allow that to dissolve and bring yourself and ourselves into a deep sense of belonging. We're here at this time on our planet to work together. And to really trust that you will know your part in that. There's no inferior or superior. We're just blossoms on a tree. Some of us have opened more than others, but everyone is opening together. Let's take a nice few breaths now, really breathing into that trust and releasing fears that we might have to fight for our place, for our voice to be heard. We'd have to fight to belong. Let's breathe into that we already belong. We already have everything we need for the journey. All we need to do is relax, surrender, and let our creativity, our true self shine out. Going into an exploration of Aries today, first sign of the zodiac is all about the self, the I. So let's come back to our normal waking consciousness. Open your eyes. Look at the room around you, the colors, maybe the artworks. Feeling gratitude for being right here, right now. Wonderful. Always find it quite hard to get back from my own attunement. So I can just happily go off dreaming. Um, but yeah, but now we're going into the story of it all. Um, and for those of you who arrived a little bit later, I'm being really excited about looking into what's going on with Chiron and Hygeia. They've been traveling together all of this year. And from our previous classes, if you've been following that or following astrology, Chiron has been doing some really interesting things. So Chiron is the wounded healer. He's a centaur. So first of all, he represents like merging our intellectual level with our instinctual nature. And when he's in Aries, he's all about the self and I. Um, so if you're born with Chiron in Aries, which a lot of us will be Chiron in Aries generations, then we're one of the strong generations to really believe that we matter. And the I really matters. My creativity matters. And so the wound is quite interesting because the wound comes when we feel like we're not being seen or heard. And Chiron in Aries has quite a strong reaction to that. So if you think of previous generations in terms of women, for example, or children being not seen and heard was kind of really normal. And so you can see the evolutionary impulse of Chiron in Aries is towards everyone mattering, really. Everyone's creativity, everyone's role is important. And so that's the kind of background energy. And Chiron is back in Aries now at this time. So let's have a look. I'm going to put on my presentation now and jump into that. And there'll be time at the end for sharing. Also, I have put the web link to Taraka.io in the chat. So if you want to find out where Hygeia and Chiron are in your chart for the discussion at the end. Can have a look at that. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so Chiron and Hygeia. I've called this dragon medicine, and that will become apparent, I think, why I've called this dragon medicine. So this lovely piece of artwork is by Alison Adams, who is part of our tribe, even though she doesn't come on live very often, and she's an amazing artist. Um, and this is her depiction of Chiron with a book and a child reading a book on it, on his back, and you can see some of the planets in the sky there. So in her depiction here, I love this connection with the inner child, with knowledge, with imagination. I've been doing a lot of reading with Adam lately. He reads to me mostly children's books. And there is that fantastic thing. I used to be a prolific reader as a child, just being off in my imagination in these journeys. And it's wonderful to kind of revisit that, because I think I've definitely lost that ability somewhere along the line to enter into that dreaming space quite as much as I had as a child. So I quite like her depiction of Chiron, and I'm always interested. I know some of you here are artists in what comes out of you with these bodies, you know, what shape that takes. Okay, so this is looking, I've got the chart here of the 4th of June, because that was the Venus star point, which we can see here at 14 degrees Gemini. And this is the backdrop of a 9-month gestation period of moving from the shadow of hunger to the gift of adventure and the city of boundlessness. And you'll see how Chiron, especially, well, actually, both Hygeia and Chiron, I feel, tap into that timeless, boundless energy. On that day, we also had, there's a lot of exact conjunctions, by the way. This is quite unusual to have 3 exact conjunctions on one single day. So we also had Mercury and Jupiter at 2 degrees Gemini, and that's Jinki 20, which is all about self-assurance and presence. It's a shadow of superficiality. So it's really diving deeper into things, it's slowing down, it's creating more focus. So we're not just jumping over things. Interesting, it's a Gemini key, actually, because that, I would say, is perhaps one of the shadows. It's like the natural inclination of Gemini to go all over the place, but also it could become a shadow if you never kind of achieve anything because you're jumping about too much. Okay, we also would have had Moon Uranus that day, but let's zoom in here to Chiron and Hygeia are 22 degrees of Aries. This is Gene Key 42, line 2, which we're going to be talking quite a bit about. And Mars is 4 degrees away, and this is Gene Key 3, line 1. So it's interesting. So you've got the Chiron Hygeia conjunction in the 42, which is all about celebration, this really powerful kind of like not even death can overcome me city frequency. And then we have Mars moving into the 3, which is innovation and innocence. And it's this real childlike energy of It's very mutative energy, gene key 3. So these two together feel very powerful to me. And then we've got also a lovely backdrop here where I've done this black triangle. We've got Vesta, the priestess in Cancer, connecting with Pallas Athena in Scorpio and Saturn in Pisces. So if I was to give an essence of how I feel about that, Vesta is all about using intention and focus. Pallas Athena in Scorpio sees through the veil. It's like immense clarity. Imagine like the third eye piercing through dimensions and realities. And then we have Saturn, who is a form builder there in Pisces. So it really supports like the new dream arising, the new seeds awakening. That's kind of what I feel, and really showing us the importance of our focused attention. This is the key. Focused attention and clarity opens the door. Okay, so let's have a look at these bodies. So Chiron is the wounded healer archetype, as I've said. One of the most prolific and early writers about Chiron is a woman called Melanie Reinhardt, who lived in Zimbabwe. I think she might live in the UK now, I'm not sure. But she's very plugged into the Southern African energies. And in her book, there's a chapter called Wilderness of Spirit that always really got my imagination. In this chapter, she talks about an extraordinary event in it might have been the exact day or whatever that Chiron was discovered in May 1977, where a white guy who was very into nature created a symposium as an equal with an African guy who was a really incredible tracker of wildlife. And they created this equal business together back in the days of apartheid when this was unheard of. And they would take people on these wilderness journeys. And there was a real element of adventure in it, because their whole kind of philosophy was that when you go beyond the bounds of your normal, that is when you get this possibility of healing. And one of the things I feel about adventure for myself is it's stretching me in some way. But adventure can be in a book, so you don't even have to move necessarily, but there's a story and there's maybe a sense of danger as well that sometimes sort of really grips you in this. So the other thing about Chiron, which is this stretching out sort of energy and real connection to the land. So this is kind of how I'm thinking about dragons, is there's a real connection to the land we're living on, being close to the land, being in a way of adventure in the land. And Chiron as a body was the first of a new set of bodies that are called centaurs, and they have a very long elliptic. So most elliptics around the sun orbits, you could call them, are quite round, whereas Chiron and the centaurs are very egg-shaped. And so Chiron's orbit crosses the path, firstly, of Saturn, which is like about constriction. There's quite a tricky underworld planet, Saturn, and then it crosses the orbit of Uranus, which is all about liberation and breaking free. So built into Chiron's energy is this possibility of liberation from the restrictions, or the things that keep us dulled down and flat. It's almost like we find this, we can break out of that. Okay, so Hygeia. Hygeia is an asteroid. So she lies between Mars and Jupiter. Hygeia in ancient Greece is generally known as being one of the daughters of Asclepius, the father of medicine. And Asclepius is actually the son, the adopted son of Chiron. So you could say through adoption that Hygeia and Chiron are actually related, especially as, so Chiron gives Asclepius his knowledge, and Asclepius gives it to Hygeia, and Panacea is the other daughter. In other ways, they're also known to be the left and right breast of the mother goddess. So there's this whole sense of the foundation of wellness coming from that initial attachment to our mother, our attachment also to our planet, believing that our needs will be met and that we will be nurtured. So Hygeia can really help us with that maybe original attachment problems if things weren't all okay with our mother at the time of our birth. So Hygeia has an interesting healing. It's quite a yin form of healing in that she has these dreaming temples. So people go there when they're not well, and they sleep in this inner temple where these golden serpents are released. This is Hygeia. Open that. So this is Klimt's. This middle one is Klimt's, the artist Klimt's depiction of Hygeia, and you can see her holding that golden serpent there. And then the priests and priestesses, and many priestesses would do like dream analysis, maybe the person healed just through the act of sleeping. I mean, when I did training for attachment for my adopted son, they said that sleeping is one of the main ways that trauma actually heals itself. So there's nothing like a good night's sleep to help us heal. So that's very interesting how the science kind of follows these things. Another level I got with Hygeia is all about what's called circadian rhythms. So the way that our body is actually billions of clocks that adjust to day and night. Our whole cellular system is actually tidal and works with the day and night cycle. And then there's other cycles like menstruation and menopause that are kind of triggered when we're at certain ages. So the whole thing of circadian rhythms, what they've shown now is people who work nights, especially if you're over 50, can have a really profound effect on your health. And so when we're plugged in to the Earth's, especially the light and day, the light and dark rhythm seems to be absolutely crucial. When we honor that cycle as human beings, it leads to our wellness and vitality. So how does Hygeia connect? Well, there's a strong connection with serpents, and her symbol is the caduceus, which is the kundalini serpents of the masculine and feminine coming up the spine and connecting at the chakras. So what I'm going to be talking about is this resonance of the kundalini system within our body, but also the nervous system, because it's not uniform in our body or on the earth. So there's certain points where the nervous system has more endings. Um, and yeah, and like the fingertips, for example. And this is the same with the earth. And so what we're seeking to do here, and we can really feel it spontaneously as well, is these places on the earth where there's more nerve endings, you might put it. Yes, so I put in the UK, dragons are also interchangeable with serpents and white horses. I'll show you one in a minute. I put centipede. That's interesting. I meant to put worm, but it's interesting. I put centipede because this huge serpent, I haven't got it here, but um, there's this huge serpent. It's like a 43 meters high with the centipede has been discovered recently at the Orinoco River. It's very high up, which is why no one's really seen it before. And it came along just as I was doing this. It popped up on Adam's phone, actually. So did a bit of research on that. I might put it in the tribe. This photo here is St. Michael's Mount, where it's just over the bay over there, as I'm looking at it, and four major ley lines meet here. So this is a very sensitive point on the earth and of the dragon lines. And this here is the original image I used for this Venus moon experience that you're having in Soul Tribe. And I originally envisaged us actually as an Aquarian temple of Apollo. So we're in the ethers globally, whereas obviously back then you would physically all be in a temple together. But I do see us actually as a temple, a dreaming temple of Hygeia. Okay, so let me say a bit about this picture here. So this book, this is about UK ley lines, and I know none of you are in the UK, but it's really to give you an example of what the dragon lines look like. I think that quite a lot is known about them in the UK, and I know in the USA and Australia that's true. But I don't know about all countries, but I'll tell you what I know about these. So one of the things I wanted to show is how the dragons, you can see these two particular dragons are actually called Ellen is the violet one and Belinus is the golden one. That's what we've called them as humans, yeah. And this alignment aligns to Cygnus, which is in the womb of Nut, the sky goddess, which is pretty cool. So the alignment is a straight line. So if you think of that as our spine, the dragon lines also have a straight alignment. And then the dragon lines themselves, they won't be uniform. They kind of go all over the place. And they have these meeting points. So St. Michael's Mount here is a meeting point of four ley lines. These ley lines from St. Michael's Mount then cross, they then become Apollo and so Artemis, I can't remember. I know the male one's Apollo. And then they go to Mont Saint Michel in France, which is a very similar looking island. And they go all the way through France, and they keep going down through Europe, and they actually reach Jerusalem. So, so they can be absolutely huge, these dragon lines. And you have to kind of feel into them, because once you do, you'll start to recognize like Michael or Mary. So let me tell you about Michael and Mary. Are these, you can see here, this is another ley line, big dragon line. There's thousands of people in Britain have walked and traveled these ley lines now in the last 10 years. It's a real big thing. And the crossing place with Ellen and Belinus is called the White Horse of Uffington. So when I say that the dragon is sometimes seen as a white horse, you'll get these white horses all over the place in the UK, and they're often places. So this is quite Celtic, because these horses connect with the Celts. And yeah, so that's all I'm going to say. So if you are looking for ley lines in your area or your country, just be aware that they can be much smaller than this, like smaller areas, but they can be huge areas as well. And you may have a male or a female line coming through where you're looking. Female lines in the UK, anyway, have been found to follow water sources. And that makes sense to me, because water is feminine. And the male lines tend to follow hills and ridges. And that kind of makes sense to me as well. They're more of the air element. Okay, so from my following of ley lines, discovering a whole ley line thing here in the center myself that I've spent about 5 years exploring when I lived in the north. This is what I feel dragons like. And they like a certain frequency. So it's not any old of these. They want something in particular. So celebration. I'm going to talk more about this, because the Hygeia and Chiron conjunction is Gene Key 42, which is all about celebration. Walking, this has been one of the main ways that I've interacted with the dragon lines, is through walking and singing, and occasionally dancing too. Meditation. When I do the daily meditation up here, the dragons are so curious. They really come and they join in with the whole thing. And there's something about looking at the mount as I do it that creates this thing. So I'm pretty sure they like meditating. I'm not much of a drug taker, but they historically, and with other people's writings, seem very much connected with magic mushrooms and LSD. And I think some of that is because the veils between the worlds break down when you take these substances, and therefore you are more easily able to connect and communicate with the dragons. Imagination, I definitely feel that one strongly, like that childlike imagination. And I think that's what Chiron is offering us, actually, to stretch beyond what we know and really get into our imagination. And then this freshness and rebirth, it feels like the dragons become active at key transformational times in the history of the earth. And I'll say a bit more about that when we look at some of the gene keys. Okay, so quite by amazing synchronicity, any of you involved in the dream arc will know that the dream arc just brings synchronicity. And today I really connected with Parrot, went to look it up, having created this already, and found that it was Gene Key 42. So I'm going to read you the message from Parrot. So just close your eyes for this bit, almost like receive it like a meditation. I am Parrot. I bring laughter into your life. I bring joy. What brings you the greatest joy? Consider this carefully and then make the necessary changes to ensure more joy can be felt. I also come into your life at the oddest moments. My timing sometimes seems off, but I assure you it is not. It is during the most difficult times, the most challenging moments, that we must remember to celebrate, act with dignity and honor. Instead of giving in to the descending energy of suffering, turn it around inside yourself. Turn around 100%. You may believe with your mind that it isn't possible, but I come to remind you of the always possible. The greatest human moments come at times of intensity. Use the intensity to propel you into the pivot. Do not ask, how will I achieve this? Step beyond how and into the transformation itself. Allow yourself to be lifted. Allow yourself to see with an entirely new vision. Death should be celebrated. Death is not black. Death is a rainbow. Death is the return of remembering. Sing, I implore you to sing. Celebration is an inward revelation as much as an outward expression. First, you must feel it welling up from the depths. Then you may follow it out into the world. Then you can abandon yourself to its grace. If I have come to you now, then your sufferings are finally coming to an end. I am an ender. I come to bring closure and to spark deep gratitude in your soul for the journey or the life that has been. Open your heart then and sing out your joy and your love. For when the old passes away, it should pass away to the sound of laughter and jubilation. I love that. So at the moment, there's a free Journey of the Jaguar Dream Arc course with the gene keys and interestingly, Python and parrot are two of the animals you can choose, as well as sloth. So it's interesting, it suddenly popped in today because I had chosen Python to work with. Okay, so some of the other gene keys I feel are connected with the dragon energy, this renewal of the earth and our renewal of consciousness as being completely intertwined together. I'm not actually going to read these because I'm running out of time, but if you are more interested, go and have a look at Gene Key 1, which is all about this renewal energy, basically. Gene Key 15, an eternally flowering spring. It moves from dullness to magnetism to fluorescence. And what I perceive is as we are absorbed, if you like, by the dragon energy, we are moving out of dullness into magnetism and we are flowering. And this one is very much connected with the Davic dragon, mermaid, whatever you want to call them, these other dimensions. Gene Key 59 is called the dragon in the genome. And this one moves from dishonesty to intimacy to transparency. Yeah, so to say, I'm not going to read those because I want to give a bit of time for sharing as well. So I'm interested to know if you have a connection with dragons, if you want to talk about Hygeia, Chiron.
Allison, could you put the link again to find our astrology?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, probably didn't do it. Okay, I'll just put in. So Ellen and Belinus are those dragons. Um, Named
Thank you.
after Eleanor of Equitable, Aquitaine, something like that. So who wants to jump in? I'm going to mute now. I'm going to pause as well, actually.